It would illuminate certain things that were close to the surface, in the core of his life, that he could not have seen, except that the pain brought it out and brought it to the surface. And he came to realize that there was this kind of a self-righteousness that was entailed in that kind of righteousness that he had, and that there was this subtle component here, that God could use him as a demonstration to angels and to men of who he is, but he could also use this situation as a vehicle for purgation, for purification, so that Job would repent in dust and ashes. We don't know about the condition of his children. We know that Job was concerned about them. Remember at the beginning of the book, what was he doing? He was offering a sacrifice because he was concerned about their welfare. We do not know. Was that judgment? Was it punitive, or was it purifying? We just don't know what their spiritual condition was. But unless you repent, you will also likewise perish, is the theme. Regardless of how God uses a thing in the life of another person, we need to take warning and to read and to mark, to understand that we could be in a similar situation. So we do well then to recognize that. We live then in this evil or this disease-death world, fraught with wonderful things on two tracks. On one track we ride on is filled with surprising joys and goodnesses. The other track, a parallel track, is filled with pains and adversities. And we run both tracks simultaneously because of the nature of this world. We should not be surprised, Paul writes in Romans 18, that the anxious longing of the creation waits eagerly for the revealing of the sons of God. 8:19 says, 8:20 says, the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself also will be set free from its slavery to corruption into the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groans and suffers the pains of childbirth together until now, and not only this, but also we ourselves, having the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves. We groan within ourselves. We long for something better, waiting eagerly for our adoption as sons, the redemption of our body. And so he is saying then that the created order, the whole created order then, is an illustration of both punishment and purification. And that God will use even this painful world to create a good. And that we are moving in a direction that will transcend the pain of this world. And that's why Paul said in verse 18, I consider the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory that is to be revealed to us. And note, by the way, the optimism of this verse. Though it would appear that the whole creation right now is suffering and groaning and subject to futility, you could call that the second law of thermodynamics, effectively. It's my belief that in the new creation you won't have that. Don't think you'll have gravity either, but that's another matter. I think it's going to be a radically different reality. Things will not wear out as they now do. But that, left to itself, what would happen to the world? The astronomers call it the heat death of the universe. The whole thing will just finally reach the point where there's not even enough useful energy to sustain even the simplest systems, and eventually there would be this death. But that is not the way it's going to die. It's not going to die with this whimper. But ultimately, instead, God is going to actually intervene in space-time history, and with our resurrection, with our adoption as sons, creation itself will also be redeemed. And so it too effectively waits for that time. It waits for the time of its resurrection. So this is a tremendous drama that we live in. It's a great story. It's a story that's fraught with pitfalls and with palaces. It has great joys and great goods, but it also has great fears and adversities. And we live and navigate in this story by contextualizing it in God's larger story. We live in this story by grasping that the sufferings of this present time aren't worth comparing with the glory to be revealed to us. Paralandra.
Imagines what that would have looked like.
Yes, it does. Paralandra is a wonderful image of a pre-fall world, and we have, in fact, we do have a tempter. We have a kind of Satan, but we have a world in which that does not occur. And it's about the best I've seen as to what that might have been like. You know, and Perelandra by C.S. Lewis. It's the second of his book in his space trilogy. And it refers to Venus. And this is an idea that Venus is an unfallen world. And Lewis himself had said elsewhere that what would happen, it may not be so good for humans to go out in outer space because if the people that they would reach, he was saying, would be in fact innocent, we would be the ones who would be like Satan. We'd corrupt them. And so that's exactly what happens in this. But yet, and this is significant, one of the characters named Ransom, not accidentally, a Christ type, whose foot is wounded, again another image of the Christ imagery and symbolism. He is also one of the sons of men used by God as one who would help avert that second fall. So it's a very interesting notion that he can use us in that way. Tremendous picture, though. So we anticipate then this world, and we recognize realistically, we have to have a realistic view both of this world and of human nature. We need to grasp and have a robust biblical anthropology. And by that I mean we have to have a realistic view that people in their natural state are at enmity with God, do not want to bow the knee before Him, want to have autonomy, the arrogance of independence. They want to suppose that they can create their own destinies in their own lives, that it's not contingent. And it is this misunderstanding, coupled with the delusion that people are basically good, that I think really causes us to embrace in a wide variety of naive policies and practices. Speaking about that idea of being basically good, I go back to one of the key passages that come to my mind, Mark 7, when we speak about human nature. Jesus was saying in Mark 7:20, "That which proceeds out of the man is that which defiles him. For from within, out of the heart of man, proceed the evil thoughts, fornications." These are not external, in other words. These are not things that we just get because of external circumstances. It's from within. Proceed the evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murders, adulteries. I always like it when people say, "I'm a pretty good guy. I haven't committed murder, or I haven't committed adultery." And let's continue the list. Deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. How are you doing? You see, nobody escapes that litany. And even with the others, fornication and murder, we also commit those. Every time we hate someone, we've just committed murder, and so forth. So don't think you're getting off lightly here. And he says this doesn't come externally. This is something that is internal, not external. This comes out of the heart of man. And therefore, to suppose that a person could then change his own heart by virtue of attainment of good character and development would be as naive as supposing that you could put your feet in a bucket and by pulling on the handle of the bucket raise yourself in the air. That's about as naive as that, you see. It just will not work.
That doesn't work.
I'm sorry, it doesn't work. Yeah. We'll have to talk about that. It's also called bootstrap theology, the same idea. By pulling yourself up in your bootstraps, you're going to raise yourself on the... It's an absurdity. And yet, virtually every religious approach that's been invented by man, Romans 1, teaches us effectively that that's exactly what we suppose we can do. And the way we do it is by creating a manageable God, by shaping a God, the God we want, rather than the God who is. One who's less traumatic, one who can be placated, can be controlled, can be manipulated. Even we try to manipulate God as if we suppose that our prayers can actually manipulate Him. I've told you many times the definition of many people's prayers is a strategy session between ourselves and God, in which we inform God about what our best interests look like and then give Him generous suggestions as to how and when to pull them off. That's pretty much what it comes down to, which is really pretty dumb because you don't even know what your best interests look like, only God does, and you couldn't pull them off anyhow. But the fact is, though, that actually, as we've said before, prayer is a matter of actually discerning what God wishes, not trying to make God do what you wish. It's always a better course to understand that. So we have this longing for a better world. We recognize the world is